Hi, this is Joyce Lundrigan with Methodist Hill Quilt Studio. Today we have a project that will be using a couple of new Creative Studio 6 features. One feature that we'll be using is Apply Pattern. The other new feature we'll be using is Order Join. Let's start the project by adding a new quilt group. And setting the grid size to 6 inches. Select geometric line, and I'm going to do this on the CAD. I'm going to draw this on my screen to the grid and then move it to my fabric and quilt that after. So, clicking Alt-P with geometric line, I'm going to draw an outline that is 18 by 42. Then I'm going to change my grid to 3 inches. I want a 3-inch outer border. Select my geometric line, Alt-P with grid snap on. And we have my border. You'll notice I went in opposite direction when I drew the inner border. And you'll see why that was important when we go to Apply Pattern. One more thing I'm going to draw. I'm going to draw some sections in the middle. So Alt-P again. And I'm going to draw this 12-inch square and this 12-inch square. And I have my outline all drawn. Let's relocate this to my machine. And it's going to be my upper left corner. And I say OK. And now I can stitch this out. So there, I have that all stitched out now. I'm going to convert this outer pattern to boundary, just so as I add things to the project that it's easier to grab patterns with inside. There. Now we're ready to play with one of the new features. Apply Pattern works with point-to-point patterns. This cupcake pattern is a point-to-point. Earlier I mentioned that I went clockwise when I clicked this inner border, and that's because the base of these cupcakes is going to follow the direction that the stitching direction is for this line. So with the cupcake highlighted and my line selected, I'm going to hit the little paintbrush, Apply Pattern, and there we go. I'm going to apply pattern on the top border. apply pattern on this side border. And lastly, we will apply them across the bottom. So easy. Now I could stitch these out, but I have this little candle corner pattern that I'd like to fill in, and I'm going to use repeat patterns just to get them on the screen. Do a circular array. Click the center here, close enough. Move them into place. I'll go back and nudge them closer in just a second. There, so we have this, but it's not connected, you can see. So I want to connect those. So with end snap on, I'm going to click that one there, select this pattern, put it there. Go over to this corner. Do the same thing using my end anchor with end snaps on. I'm going to click them. You want to make sure that when you're joining these patterns together that you get the right side Whoops. There we go. That one's good. We have one more to go. See, so this pattern, end anchor, wants to click there, and this pattern with end anchor clicks there. And you can see now that this pattern will stitch into this one, and there we go. Now, in CS5, we would now have had to set order. But using order join, we can select the first pattern we want to stitch. And I think I want to start here by highlighting the first pattern you want to stitch. You then go to order join. And look at that. All these patterns are now going to stitch continuously. For small projects like this, it makes a really quick way to set in borders using these two new features. So I'm going to stitch these cupcakes out and be back with you in a minute. Well, that was pretty quick and easy for small projects to use apply pattern to geoline to place a whole border. The reason I use geoline is because geoline is gives you individual segments, where if I had used point-to-point line, it would have been one continuous pattern instead of 4 different segments. So now on to the next step. Our Sweet 16 table runner needs some candles. So I'm going to create a circular array using the point-to-point candles. And in order to do that, the way for me to find the center in order to place the circular array, I'm going to create a boundary by moving the machine head and clicking from bottom left upper right, bottom right, upper left, and stop. Now I have a reference point to click my center when I go to place the point-to-point candle circular array. So let's put the candle on the screen. We've got to have a pattern on the screen in order to do an array. Now I've got it highlighted, moved into position, right click. I'm going to circular array. I need 16 copies. We need 16 copies for suite 16. Click on number of copies, and CS calculates the degrees for us so we don't have to do math. Place the array center, which we did by creating that boundary. And there we go. We have this beautiful little array of 16 candles. Now I want them to stitch continuous, and how can I do that? Well, I'm going to take point-to-point curve, and on my screen, rather than on the quilt top itself, I'm going to Alt-P to place point-to-point curve. You'll notice that it highlights up here the point-to-point on CAD. I'm going to have end snap on, and I'm going to start clicking from there, right click, there, right click. So I'm going to connect all the candles all the way around. I wish I was 16 again. And we're almost there. And escape, and they're all connected, but once again they're not in the sewing order that we need for them to stitch continuous. If I were to hit F8, which is set sew order, you'd see all these numbers, and it's like, oh gosh. We have this new tool called order join, so I'm going to highlight the first pattern. Actually, it doesn't matter which pattern. It doesn't have to be the one that says start or next. It can be any pattern that you want. Just highlight one and then click on order join. And guess what? We now have a start and an end, and it's going to stitch continuous. How brilliant is Matt? So I'm going to stitch out our candle array, and we'll be back in a minute. And our 16 candles have been quilted. I'm going to grab that design, and I'm going to rubber stamp and move that over here. Now, I think I'd like to make sure that it's even with the one I have over here. So I'm going to also find the center of that block by clicking the boundaries. Using my machine head, I'm going to click lower left, upper right, lower right, upper left, stop, And with the pattern selected, the crosshairs will tell me when I've got it centered. There. So we're ready to stitch the next 16 candles. There, so we have those 2 blocks of candles all quilted. But let's fill up the centers of both of them. I think I'd like to put a cupcake in the center. So I'm going to click on point to point, since this is a point to point pattern. And I'm going to click here and here. And go over to this one. Click here. And here. And we're ready to stitch those 2 up. Okay, so we're almost done. We have just the center block to go, and we're going to put a birthday cake in the center. Once again, I'd like to know where the center of my block is, so I'm going to click as I did before, bottom left, upper right, upper left, bottom right, and stop. Now I have my reference point for my center. I'm going to move my head to where that center is. And using repeat patterns. And with pattern location as center, I'm going to say OK. And there we have it. The cake is in, and I'm going to stitch. So the cake is quilted, and now we're going to place the words sweet and the number 16 on the cake as decoration. The first thing I want to do is get rid of the distracting boundary I have here that looks like this in red. Because it is in red, if I hit delete at this point, it's going to delete first. So I hit delete, and that boundary is gone, and it's not distracting to me anymore. So the next thing we're going to do is put our sweet 16 on the cake. We're going to decorate it. And to do that, we'll use the text feature. So with your cursor, mouse, off of where you want to use it, off on the CAD, right click, and there we have text property. I'm going to type capital letters, sweet. Place So our cake is quilted. We're going to use the text feature of Creative Studio to decorate the cake. With my cursor off of where the quilting is done on the CAD, I'm going to right click, text property, and I'm going to place the words sweet, all capital letters I did in this instance. Creative Studio brings up a screen, and these are fonts that exist on your computer. And I'm going to use, I think I'll use Cambria, and I'm going to use size 20. and say OK. And there we go. We have this that I can move up here. Let's get our center handles and fit that in. So I have centered the wording in the middle layer, and I'm good with that. So now I'm going to go back and click off the cat again and do text property. And this time I'm going to write the number 16. Place text. I'm going to use the same font, which was Cambria. Size 20, and say OK. There we go. We'll bring that up there. I'm good with this, and so I'm going to quilt. And our project is complete, unless you can think of some embellishments that you want to put on the quilt to make it even sweeter. I hope you've learned how to use a couple of new features, gotten some ideas on how those features work. Apply pattern and order join can be used so many different ways. So let your imagination wander and play on SAM and enjoy.